In May 2025, inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency measured Iran's stockpile of uranium and found it had reached 408.6 kilograms, which represented a nearly 50% increase since February of that year. The measurement became significant when analysts calculated that this quantity, if further enriched to 90% weapons-grade levels, could theoretically produce enough fissile material for approximately 9 nuclear weapons. According to an assessment the Defense Intelligence Agency released on May 11, 2025, Iran would need probably less than 1 week to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for a single nuclear device using material it already possessed. That timeline raises a question that keeps American defense planners awake at night. Why does the United States fear Iran's nuclear ambitions so intensely? And what makes Iran's pursuit of nuclear capability different from every other proliferation challenge America has faced? The answer lies in a combination of technical capabilities Iran has developed, the history of how that program evolved, and the strategic implications of a nuclear-armed Iran in the Middle East. The international community first learned about Iran's undeclared nuclear activities in August 2002 when an Iranian opposition group, called the National Council of Resistance of Iran, revealed the existence of 2 facilities Iran had not reported to international inspectors. One was a uranium enrichment plant at Natanz. The other was a heavy water production facility at Arak. These revelations showed that Iran had been operating a covert nuclear program while publicly stating it had no such activities. When inspectors gained access to these sites, they discovered that Iran had built substantial uranium enrichment infrastructure without informing the international community, as required under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Iran had signed. Subsequent investigations by the international inspectors uncovered evidence that Iran had pursued what the agency described as an organized nuclear weapons development program between the late 1980s and 2003, which Iran called the Ahmad Project. The Ahmad Project had focused on developing an implosion-style nuclear weapon that could be delivered by Iran's Shahab-3 ballistic missile. According to assessments, Iranian scientists had worked on uranium metallurgy, conducted high-explosive tests designed to create symmetrical compression, and developed missile re-entry vehicles configured to carry nuclear warheads. In 2003, Iran appears to have halted the most visible weaponization activities, though U.S. intelligence agencies assessed that Iran preserved the knowledge and infrastructure that could restart such work. Iran continued its uranium enrichment program, while insisting the activities were purely peaceful and intended only for civilian nuclear power generation. This explanation faced skepticism because Iran had only one operating nuclear power reactor, which Russia built and continues to fuel, which meant Iran had no demonstrated need for domestically enriched uranium for power generation. The discrepancy between Iran's stated peaceful intentions and its actual behavior created concerns that led to international pressure. Between 2006 and 2012, the UN Security Council passed multiple resolutions demanding Iran cease uranium enrichment and imposed economic sanctions targeting Iran's oil exports and banking sector. Iran responded by expanding its enrichment activities rather than curtailing them. By 2013, Iran had installed thousands of centrifuges at Natanz and had begun operating a second enrichment facility at Fordo, which was constructed inside a mountain in a configuration designed to survive military strikes. Iran was enriching uranium to 20% purity, which is significantly above the 3 to 5% needed for power reactor fuel, but below the 90% typically used for weapons. The 20% enrichment level is technically significant because reaching it from natural uranium completes approximately 90% of the work needed to reach 90% weapons-grade material. These developments led to negotiations that produced the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or J.C.P.O.A, in 2015. Under the J.C.P.O, Iran agreed to enrich uranium only to 3.67% purity, maintain a stockpile of no more than 202 kilograms of enriched uranium, operate only 5,060 first-generation centrifuges at Natanz, and accept enhanced international monitoring including cameras and sensors at its nuclear facilities. In exchange, Iran received relief from international economic sanctions. The restrictions were designed to extend what nuclear analysts call Iran's breakout time, which is the period needed to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for one bomb, from roughly 2 to 3 months to at least 1 year. Reports from the International Atomic Energy Agency verified that Iran complied with these nuclear restrictions between 2016 and 2018. In May 2018, the United States withdrew despite verified Iranian compliance with its nuclear commitments. President Trump stated the agreement was flawed because it did not address Iran's ballistic missile program or its support for regional proxy forces. The US then reimposed comprehensive sanctions targeting Iran's economy. After the United States withdrew from the nuclear deal, Iran continued to follow the agreement's restrictions for about a year. But in July 2019, that began to change. Iran started gradually exceeding the limits set by the deal. Enrichment levels first rose to 20% and later reached 60% purity, which was far beyond what is normally required for civilian nuclear energy. At the same time, Iran began installing thousands of more advanced centrifuges, which enrich uranium far more efficiently than the older models allowed under the agreement. As these steps continued, Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium grew dramatically. Under the deal, Iran had been limited to about 202 kilograms. In the years that followed, that stockpile expanded to more than 9,200 kilograms at different enrichment levels. These expansions fundamentally changed the breakout timeline. Instead of the one-year warning period the JCPOA had established, current assessments indicate Iran could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for one weapon in less than 1 week using material already stockpiled at Fordow. If Iran operated both Fordow and Natanz facilities simultaneously, it could theoretically produce enough weapons-grade uranium for 11 bombs in the first month. The Institute for Science and International Security analyzed the timeline for converting Iran's 60% enriched uranium to weapons-grade, 90%, and concluded it would take approximately 3 weeks at Fordow. The 408 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, once converted to 90%, would yield roughly 233 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium, which at standard estimates of 25 kilograms per weapon would be sufficient for 9 nuclear weapons. Iran has also made progress on other components needed for deliverable nuclear weapons beyond producing weapons-grade uranium. Iran has conducted experiments with uranium metal, which is used in fabricating nuclear weapon cores, but has limited civilian applications. Iran has developed ballistic missiles with ranges covering Israel, Saudi Arabia, and US military bases across the Middle East. Reports have documented Iranian work on technologies related to miniaturizing warheads to fit on missiles, though Iran disputes these findings. The language US intelligence agencies use to describe Iran's weaponization activities has evolved. For years, national intelligence estimates stated that Iran was not currently undertaking the key nuclear weapons development activities necessary to produce a testable nuclear device. More recent assessments state that Iran has not made a decision to develop nuclear weapons, but note that Iran's nuclear activities better position it to produce nuclear weapons if it chooses to do so. International inspectors stated in a June 21, 2025 interview that they did not have tangible proof that Iran had a program or plan to manufacture a nuclear weapon, but acknowledged that reduced Iranian cooperation with inspectors meant they could not provide full assurance about all Iranian activities. Iran withdrew designation of several experienced inspectors in 2024, removed cameras from centrifuge production facilities in 2022, and has not provided full cooperation with investigations of uranium particles found at undeclared sites. The reduced monitoring creates situations where certain activities could occur without detection. Without cameras in centrifuge production facilities, inspectors cannot verify that Iran is not building centrifuges for undeclared programs. Without full cooperation on past weaponization questions, inspectors cannot establish a complete baseline of Iran's nuclear weapons-related knowledge. From an American strategic perspective, an Iranian nuclear weapon raises concerns beyond general proliferation issues. Iran has maintained hostile rhetoric toward Israel since the 1979 revolution and has supported proxy forces that have attacked Israeli territory. If Iran acquired nuclear weapons, it would alter regional power dynamics in ways that could affect core US interests and allies. Israel would face security challenges from a nuclear-armed neighbor whose government has questioned Israel's right to exist. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states that host US military bases would find themselves within range of potential Iranian nuclear-tipped missiles. Saudi officials have indicated that if Iran develops nuclear weapons, the kingdom would pursue its own nuclear capability rather than rely solely on external security guarantees. The prospect of regional proliferation concerns American strategists because if Iran goes nuclear and Saudi Arabia follows, other countries like Egypt or Turkey might pursue their own programs. which could transform the Middle East from having one nuclear-armed state to having 5 or 6 within a relatively short time frame. There are differing analytical views on how nuclear weapons might affect Iranian behavior. Some analysts suggest a nuclear-armed Iran might feel emboldened to increase support for proxy forces because it would calculate that nuclear weapons provide deterrence against regime-threatening retaliation. Others argue that nuclear weapons might make Iran more cautious because Tehran would have less need to rely on proxies for security and more to lose from escalation. These strategic considerations influenced the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury on February 28, 2026, which included strikes targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel conducted strikes in October 2024 that reportedly destroyed the Tailgun 2 building at Parchin, which intelligence sources described as a nuclear weapons research facility. However, international inspectors stated in a June 17 interview that Iran's enrichment program had not been seriously affected by recent strikes. Iran responded by announcing plans to install 32 additional cascades of centrifuges and increase production of 60% enriched uranium from 4.7 kilograms per month to 37 kilograms per month at Fordow. As of mid-2025, Iran had installed 11,222 advanced centrifuges at Natanz. Diplomatic efforts have continued through Oman as an intermediary, with 5 rounds of indirect talks completed as of June 2025. The central disagreement involves Iranian uranium enrichment on Iranian soil. The United States has proposed frameworks that would prohibit domestic enrichment and instead use regional consortium models, while Iran has rejected this as unacceptable and stated that enrichment inside Iran is a red line. The combination of rapid breakout timelines, the history of undeclared nuclear activities, reduced international monitoring, ideological considerations, and potential regional proliferation dynamics explains why US policymakers view Iran's nuclear program with particular concern. Iran now possesses enough 60% enriched uranium that, if further enriched, could theoretically produce fissile material for 9 weapons. It operates advanced centrifuges that significantly reduce production timelines. It maintains facilities in hardened locations that are difficult to attack militarily. It has developed ballistic missiles capable of delivering warheads across the region. These technical capabilities, combined with the historical pattern of concealment and the strategic implications of Iranian nuclear weapons, form the basis for why the United States assesses Iran's nuclear program as requiring sustained attention and potential action to prevent weaponization. The fear centers on the assessment that Iran has positioned itself to move from a decision to partner weaponized to actual possession of nuclear devices in a time frame measured in weeks rather than years, which would fundamentally alter Middle Eastern security dynamics in ways that would be difficult to reverse.